niente. Haz que problema.
Look at that.
Wow.
Delmo.
Get there. Episode 7, we're back over to Cap. Mike Val, the host. Still don't have a sponsor. We're working on that. Not really too concerned about a sponsor. A lot of crap to go over tonight, and the gloves are coming off. We have a lot of interesting topics that have come out in the past 24 hours in the bowling world, and this guy's not going to be holding back tonight. I think he's muted. He muted? Okay, he's muted. I don't know why he's muted, but he's muted.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, John. How are you?
I was letting you finish before I said anything. I'm doing wonderfully. How are you?
How you feeling? How's the league going? You're back to bowling. I haven't talked to you in a while.
The first few weeks, yeah, I am back to bowling. The first few weeks were good. My team and I actually both bowled well. This week we are off because of the military championships being at South Point, so they're taking up both the arena and the regular bowling center.
Yeah. How's it feel? No pain though?
No pain. There's still, I would say, a slight twinge of discomfort when I try and lead off that pivot step into my slide. But no, it's nothing to gung ho over. Let's put it that way. Everything's perfectly fine. Thanks for asking.
Fantastic. We're glad to hear Johnny's almost back at 100%. So let's drop the gloves tonight. But there's a lot of stuff we can chat about.
Oh yeah, totally.
Let's do the good thing first. We'll do the good news first. USBC released this afternoon 2 new members of the Hall of Fame.
Yes, I did see that.
Dave Ferraro and Deandra Asbeatty. Could not have. Deandra is a no-brainer. Definitely belong in there. And Ferraro, too, a storied career on tour.
Yeah, there aren't 2 more deserving people than those two for not only their talents, but their generosity on and off the lanes, with fans, charities, and just their talent is unmatched. And Deandra was a Team USA member, if not still one for God knows over a decade at least. And Dave Ferraro, former PBA Player of the Year, absolutely 2 awesome candidates. Hats off to both of those players.
Didn't Dave win the first JP Open too?
He won the second one. He won in 1992.
Weber won the first one?
Yeah,
Okay.
P. Weber won in 1991. Ferraro ran the ladder in 1992.
Was that the year Tap made the show?
No, Charlie made the show in 91.
The first one.
Yeah. Bob Benoit got to the title match from the opening match and lost to Pete. Charlie was in the semifinal match.
And Cook made that show too, right?
That was 92. That was Ferraro's win.
All right. I'm kind of all over the map on that one. So
you're actually in the exact same ballpark. There's just 2 different fields in it.
Yeah, it's been a long ride. Dude, I'm going to be 40 next week, so the mind's not all there anymore.
I'm experiencing the same thing, bro. I'm 38, and I feel like I've aged at least 10 years in the last 2.
Yeah, it's a miracle that I've somewhat almost made it to 40.
But do you ever look at the clock across the room and be like, usually my eyes will see what time it is, like after a blink or 2, and now it just doesn't happen. That was my first sign of knowing that, okay, things are changing and this is not good.
John, I'll close my eyes and I feel like I'm ready to go bowl a JBT, but no, I'm 39 and I don't do that anymore. Like I can relive our youth like it was yesterday and knowing that it's 25 years prior.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy how vivid those memories still are these days compared to I can't even remember what I had for dinner last night.
Exactly. Yeah. What'd you do? How was work today? I don't know. But I finished third at a JBT, a show place in 1999, and I threw this and that. It's like I can remember my youth bowling so vividly, and I can't remember anything else recently.
It's okay. You're not alone.
No. All right. So what do we want to go with first? Do we want to go with the urethane topic first?
Yeah, you could start. This is your show, man. I'm just a guest.
Well, I mean, I don't fully know it, and I pulled it up here. So what is the deal now? So
what I read sorry, go ahead.
No, so PBA announces ban on all urethane balls on the national tour made before August 1st, 2022. So basically, the PBA is just forcing the hand of these guys just to drill fresh new urethane balls that are made this year, basically.
Yeah, and I guess also forcing the manufacturers to make a decision to continue producing them. Because you assume if, like, in other words, like you just said, I got an attitude control drilled in September of last year. Like, it just made it, but what if that ball was made in May? Like, that's a horse of a different color, you know? But it could go either way. It could go. I mean, anyway, I'm getting off topic here, but I believe the PBA was supposed to make their official statement today if they haven't made it already. But what the article says is that they are banning any predated August of 2022.
Yeah. Now, what I want to know is, like, who got in the ear of the PBA to do this? Like, it can't be the manufacturers because it hurts the manufacturers. So, who got in the ear of Tom Clark to say, "Hey, let's"?
Contrary to like what I may, old me would just go nuts here, but I think that there's a lot of different ways to look at this one. To answer your question, Mike, I'm not 1,000% sure, but I would think it has to actually do with what's been going on that's basically made everything and everybody become like not in control of the situation. And what I mean by that is, okay, now urethane's becoming the big thing, so let's alter patterns to try and cater to the other bowling balls. We can't seem to do that. Let's eliminate this batch of urethane balls because they're too soft. Well, we can't do that. Let's read, like, they're always trying to figure out some way to do it. And when it's all said and done, the urethane bowling balls themselves are reinventing the game again. And we're in that reinventing period. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody really knows what to do. And the problem is nobody has a firm grasp on what to do because you have a 100% splice down the middle. You have the traditionalists who despise the urethane game. You have the guys who only know the game as the way it is today, i.e. the younger guys. Yeah. So it's a very, very tricky, slippery situation. But what it all boils down to is if they do decide to ban these balls, it has to be in conjunction with the governing bodies working together at least about something. In other words, the PBA is not going to ban them, I don't think, if the USBC is not going to either support it or follow suit right behind it.
But how does the USBC can't monitor that at the local level, though? I mean, at the national level, yes. You go bowl nationals, you check your balls and you weigh, and they can check the serial number. You can't. How do you monitor that if you go bowl your Tuesday night Classic League at South Point? You can't do it. Right?
I think that would be a little bit too far-fetched. The same way I'm sure that they have weigh-ins or whatever it is at local PTQs for PBA events, but they're really only checking random spot checks on the tour or the guys that are close to the show or close to the number, right? Yeah. So I feel like the bowling ball specs the same way they monitor at USBCs where, you don't have an X in the center of your grip if you're a no thumber, you have to fix it. Or if this ball is illegal, we can add the weight hole right here. You go take it out there and do it. For specific events like that, I feel like it would be monitored. But at the recreational league bowling level, no, I don't think they would touch it. At least nowhere near the time frame that we're in now. There would have to be several years to get out of the urethane craze again and into something else.
Do you think this is going to expose a lot of the guys on tour, meaning a lot of the guys that are predominantly urethane based that prefer to use that? Do you think this exposes their game and the weaknesses that they may have in their game?
It happens in every single generation, and that's where you find the true professionals of each generation. Mm-hmm. So it will identify the guys whose careers were made by it, very similar to the way guys' careers were made when resin was introduced. There were guys when resin came out that basically just threw in the towel. They were urethane guys prior to 1992. Mm-hmm. But then there were guys that when resin came out, holy shit, not only am I a good bowler, I'm a great bowler.
Yeah.
I'm like one of the best bowlers that ever lived. I'm talking about a couple of guys that won the higher percentage of their titles with resin but also competed on tour in the urethane era. The same thing will happen nowadays. What will wind up happening is people will start to realize more how good Belmo, Tackett, Frankie Lavoie, Chris Prather, Kyle Troop, how good those guys really are. What I'm very curious to see this time is what's going to happen on the left side of the lane.
Absolutely.
That's the craziest thing, because every lefty nowadays that's good hammers it at the bottom and has kind of a rainbowy trajectory through the front part of the lane. Whereas 10, 12 years ago, Rhino Page, Patrick Allen, they were precise up the lane. Parker Bone, for his entire history on tour, has been precision and accuracy. My dad hooked it. Earl threw it straight. I mean, there's been periods of time where different kinds of games worked. There were times where you could throw it like Albee and Jason Couch on the same arrow, even though the speeds and the revs were so completely different, right? Yeah. Nowadays, I'm curious to go see what Anthony Nyer is going to do without urethane. I'm curious to see what Jesper is going to do without urethane, because I've never seen him even throw resin on television, if not for maybe one test shot on a fill ball. Jacob Buttriff I have seen win with resin, but he'll be the first one to tell you 90% of his wins come from urethane.
Absolutely.
So I think that you will get more of the beauty of what is the true talent, as we've already seen. Most people that are bowlers know that Chris Prather is one of the most gifted talents the game's ever seen.
He's the best physical game on tour right now, hands down.
You take urethane out of the equation, Chris Prather wins twice the amount of titles he already has in half the amount of time. The same way a Pete Weber would have done in his era, or a Walter Ray, or a Norm Duke, Brian Voss.
Yeah. It's interesting, though. I think now, here's a good one. Do you think the PBA could make the hardness a couple points higher than the USBC back in the day? But see, they have to be aligned with each other. You just can't have one and not the other, right? You can't have the hardness for tour balls at X and the USBC at Y. You have to be aligned. They have to be in bed with each other, to put it politely.
I think Nico's definitely on something there, because I heard a couple other guys talking about this, and they were saying that maybe if you took a ball that says, like, even if the numbers aren't raised or lowered, but a ball that loses hardness over X amount of time. So, like, I'm not sitting here saying that the Purple Hammer falls below hardness specs, but over time, does it get to that point quicker than, say, a pitch black would? Or if you need to monitor something along those lines. So in that case, what Nico's saying is a great idea, simply stated, because the points ain't going to affect the cover stock too much.
No.
And you'll still somewhat level the playing field. You'll have to reinvent the game again. It's a different form of urethane that's out there. I'm sure that it's something in their repertoire, but I think this is just like the first of many things to come as far as what they plan on doing. But the main focus of it really seems to be that it's reinvented the game. And the game is at a place right now where it was used to a certain identity, and now it's kind of it's crazy that it's being taken over by the old identity from 40 years ago.
Do you think that eventually they're just going to ban urethane altogether on the tour?
If urethane is banned altogether on the tour, I would presume it would have to be banned by the USBC as well. And that's really? That's going back to what we were talking about. Sure, because a lot of PBA players are USBC members that bowl the USBC national tournament, things along those lines. I guess to me it would be like allowing minor league baseball players to swing metal bats all the way up to AAA, but then throwing them into the big leagues and saying under law or rules of your contract, you need to bat 300 your first season. And, oh, by the way, here's wood. You're not allowed to use the metal anymore. I feel like it would be kind of doing that in some respect. But honestly, at the end of my story here, because I'm just babbling now, I think that would have to be a discussion between the USBC and the PBA together.
Yeah, that's a Tom Clark Chad closed door meeting right there.
I agree totally.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens now with the World Series coming up. Well, the U.S. Open's next week. But I don't think the U.S. Open. We'll talk about the U.S. Open in a second. But is that a USBC tournament now? It is until the show, right? Or am I mistaken on that?
I believe you're right about that. I have pretty much all the other facts. That one, I'm going to take your word for it. I didn't do my research there.
I have a gripe with the U.S. Open.
That hasn't changed.
No. You know what I'm going with.
I'm pretty sure I do.
Explain to me how almost a decade ago. Probably 15 years ago, right? So when was the Open in Carolina? 2005-ish? 2004, 2005?
Yeah, that's around. I mean, when the
Right?
years that Barnes and Tommy won,
Yeah.
and
So when was
Duke.
the last JP Open? It was 2001, right? The Halloween show?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
So they weren't there for what, 3 years?
That's
Right? About
correct.
3
Yes.
years? All right. So '04 was the first year they had the Open there. Why would they ever, number one, move it out of Carolier with 450 people? I understand you want to move it around the country. You could do that. Whatever. Okay. We have 450 people on the roster with a waiting list of probably close to 50 to 100 people, right? Explain to me how now it is an invitation only with a PTQ, right? And now you're giving commissioner exemptions to the U.S. Open. I love Mookie Betts. He's one of my favorite baseball players in the world. He's a phenomenal talent. He's a phenomenal bowler, right? But why should Mookie Betts get an exemption into the U.S. Open over a prior champion of the U.S. Open or a Hall of Famer? Norm Duke wanted to bowl the U.S. Open. He has to go bowl the PTQ, right? Where they're giving Mookie the exemption. Are the Los Angeles Dodgers going to give Norm Duke an exemption to go play right field for the Dodgers against the Giants one day?
No.
It's great for the game, and Mookie's not going to embarrass himself. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not doubting his ability or his talent. My gripe here is your father, right? Duke. I don't know if Walter or Peter on the roster. Guys like that have won the U.S. Open before now have to qualify through the PTQ. That is complete. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. Mm-hmm. I think that is terrible. It's not an Open anymore. It's the U.S. Invitational. Mm-hmm. And are they going to do the same thing with the multi-patterns again? I mean, come on.
I can go anywhere with this one. What question do you want me to start with?
Go with the roster. I mean, let's go with the roster. I love Mookie, and this is not a knock on Mookie Betts at all. However, don't give the exemption out. I mean, you're taking a roster spot away from a past champion or a Hall of Famer or whatever you want to call it, right? And a PTQ for a major? I mean, really?
Yeah.
It's not an Open anymore. The All-Star, before it became the U.S. Open in 1971, the All-Star was 100 games. Mm-hmm. Anybody with a card, with a ABC card at that time, was eligible to bowl the All-Star. Then it became the U.S. Open. It was the same thing. And they had qualifiers for the U.S. Open years ago. You won a spot into the tournament by winning, a regional tournament. I'm not saying a PBA regional, but like a regional event, like a satellite that got you in.
And that's when the field was still at 240 players. Or
exactly.
240-ish.
Yeah. So now fast forward it almost 20 years after that, you're at 450 guys. You mean to tell me that the Roth Home and Double is going to be in Delaware this year? All right. That tournament sold out in about 30 minutes once it became public on the PBA website. You don't think that the U.S. Open, if it was at Carolier or if it was at South Point or if it was at Fountain Bowl, they have the huge center in California, that wouldn't sell out in 30 minutes?
Yeah, I do. I think it would sell out.
Yeah. So why are you cutting the field so drastically?
For the good reasons, you can move to smaller bowling centers. I'm assuming that smaller venues are better cost efficient moves.
Here's the other one. Who is Jimmy Allen? I don't know who Jimmy Allen is. I know he got an exemption as well. What is a Jimmy Allen? I'm not familiar with this guy. Who is he?
Jimmy Allen is a country music singer. I think he won an award this year for best upcomer or best newcomer to country music scene.
All right, so
and he's an avid bowler.
Avid bowler. Mookie Betts bowler. Jerome Bettis bowler.
Nowhere near
bowler.
Better than Drew Carey. Nowhere near as good as Mookie.
So Jerome Bettis is pretty good too.
Not as good as Jerome either.
So what is he, Michael J. Fox?
No, he's like he's a little better than Chris Paul.
Oh, come on.
I think him and Nelly could, if Nelly actually bowled a little bit, I think that they'd be close.
Continue, John.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting fired up.
That's okay. No, but for the first question is smaller venues. So if you limit the field, the numbers make sense if the U.S. Open qualifying stays the same. You can put X amount of guys on a pair, and I read this year that they're only using 12 pairs at the U.S. Open.
They're at Woodland this year, right?
For the U.S., I believe so.
Woodland's 80 lanes. They're using.
I know they have a practice range that I don't know anything about, but I heard that they're doing 3 shifts, 3 bowlers per pair. 24 games of match play means you get to bowl on all 12 pairs twice in qualifying, and I think the pattern's the same for qualifying. But as far as so that kind of throws the idea of the smaller venue even being like more cost efficient or whatever it is. Here's what I actually feel about it. I feel like the PBA and USBC, whoever it is, whatever, they're trying to figure out ways to make bowling popular. They're trying to figure out ways to make bowling be cool.
Okay.
And the only way you make something cool nowadays that's not really considered cool and never has been considered cool unless you're in the bowling type family or people that happen to the small percentage of people that actually like to bowl. The only way to be cool is to bring cool people into your sport so they tell people that it's cool. So do I think that they decided to take 300 possible entries out of a place like Carolier or Fountain Bowl or the bowling alley in Whitecliff that I always forget in Ohio? Do I think that they made an improper choice in taking away 300 entries, going to a limited field, given X amount of numbers to junior USA members, and one spot is being given away, and it's to a professional baseball player who's also an extremely talented bowler, world-class athlete? Do I think it's cool that Mookie Betts is bowling? Absolutely. I don't think it hurts anything that one of the best baseball players in the game loves bowling. I think that's great. Do I think it sucks for the other 300 people that would have liked to go and try and get a check and bowl in an event that is actually their craft, that is their passion? It absolutely sucks for all those other people. And everybody wants to talk about Mookie saying like, oh, I didn't want it. I would rather bowl to BTQ and this and that. It has nothing to do with Mookie's decision. And Mookie's a world-class act. We already know that about Mookie. The upsetting thing about it is the PTQ itself, just to get into that elite field of 108 players, already has a waiting list.
Yeah, and Jimmy Allen's on the roster for the PTQ. He didn't get the exemption,
right.
So he's on the
right. So the thing about that is, when you really look at it from a larger standpoint, the only idea in their brain was we need more exposure for the sport of bowling because we think it's going to be beneficial for it down the road. So basically, F everybody that cares about bowling for now while we're trying to present this new image to the public about bowling. We're going to take who we think gives us the best opportunity to get there, which is a very business-oriented decision, which I understand, but to the general public, because the general whole, us as people that are into this sport, are not high-prize, white-collar, crazy minds like that. We are thinking more about the benefit of our livelihoods and like our brothers and sisters that are bowling right now. And what's happening is that's not an answer for the bowlers that you have, and they seem to be making these same mistakes over and over again, which is why the annual memberships go down every single year.
So I got the spec. I guess we'll call it the specs of the U.S. Open.
All right.
So Tuesday the 31st, 8 games, pattern 1, 8 games, pattern 2, 8 games, pattern 3 for qualifying. Then on Friday in match play, you're bowling 8 games on pattern 4, and then the TV show will be on pattern 4. So there's 4 different patterns for the U.S. Open. That's striking.
Okay. All right. Told you I didn't have all that info.
No, and I just pulled it up now. So looking at the roster. Belmo, U.S. Open champion, right?
Well, here's real
Ryan
quick.
Simonelli, Open champion.
While you're reading that, what you said earlier, the other thing that has happened with the U.S. Open is it used to be super prestigious, A, because it was one of the jewels of the Triple Crown, even before there was a Grand Slam. B, it was always the hardest tournament to win. They always put out the most difficult oil patterns. There was so many people that would come and bowl. I mean, the odds are more against you when there's more people competing in a tournament with 400 as opposed to 100. And the other thing about the U.S. Open itself, what was I just going to say here, is they changed previously established rules because they felt like it. Here's a prime example. Robert Lawrence. Robert Lawrence won the U.S. Open in 1992. You know what one of the prizes was when you won the U.S. Open in 1992? You got a lifetime exemption into the tournament. The same way that if Jack Nicklaus decides this year that he wants to play in the Masters,
he's eligible.
Even if the field is capped at 108,
he gets a spot.
Guess what? The Golden Bear is going to be 109 because he has a lifetime exemption into that tournament. You don't just – it's one of the greatest things about certain kinds of history is when you achieve a certain – when you actually – I don't want to say achieve an achievement. When you actually achieve that, you get rewarded for it. And you're supposed to be rewarded with the rewards that were given to you for establishing that. And that's what sucks about it. And again, that's from a player's perspective.
So unfortunately, I cannot view the patterns. I would love to see what the patterns are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you know, one of them is that flat 40-footer 1-to-1. I don't know which day that's going to be, but I mean, the fact that guys that have won this tournament before, and you know, I don't know if Pete had enough points to get in from the senior tour. I don't know how that works. He's not on the roster, and I don't know if Pete's not bowling, was he choosing not to bowl or whatever the case is. 5 U.S. Opens not bowling. You know, Norm. What if Mike Albee wanted to come out of retirement and bowl in the U.S. Open?
Yeah, it's exactly. There's got to be some kind of happy medium. If 500 entries creates more checks, like more guys cash, but it doesn't create more money at the top, but 100 doesn't allow the bowlers that are 100% deserving to bowl that event the opportunity to, there's got to be some kind of happy medium. And the same problems exist on every single platform, however many bowlers you throw into the mix. So that could happen at 108, at 240, at 500. But Christ almighty, I mean, 108 players, and some of the names you just rattled off aren't bowling. Do me a favor. Now read some that are. Now, like, this all started to go haywire in my brain when the Tournament of Champions was won by somebody who had never won a national PBA title. That's when I knew something was going wrong. There was some kind of unwinding. And now you're taking the U.S. Open, the most prestigious jewel of the Triple Crown, and now, as you said earlier, you're making it an invitational event. You know who's going to bowl this year? The people we want to bowl, besides the obvious stars of the tour. It's every single tournament itself is like flip-flopped its importance in the pyramid here. See, it's just so confusing.
I agree with you. When you just said somebody who won the TSC that didn't have a national title, there's two people that come to mind with that, right? There's two. I think even before that, when it went downhill, was when they opened the field up to any PBA title holder, regardless of the level, if it was a regional tour or the national tour. That's when it started to go sideways, because Joe Blow, right? He could be a lifetime regional player. He hits lightning in a bottle one weekend, right? And has the nuts for the weekend. He wins a title. Now he can go bowl at the Tournament of Champions. Could you imagine, like local Joe Blow, right? And all of a sudden he's bowling the Firestone? It would never, ever happen when it was at the Firestone. Ever.
No way. Ever.
That's when it kind of started going sideways.
Exactly.
And I'm looking at this now, like I'm looking at the roster. I mean, Brandon Bonta, I think that's another junior bowler, right?
Brandon who?
Brandon Bonta, Bonta. I think he's a collegiate kid.
Okay.
Cameron Crow, he's still a junior bowler.
Okay.
I'm looking at it here. There's a couple. I mean,
so you've made it to the letter C, and I already don't know two people that are bowling. Sounds like it.
I mean, I'm just going to go through it. I mean, we know who Cameron Crow is. We know who he is. He's very talented.
Not knocking anybody that's on
Not
the
at
list,
all.
Mike, but just in general saying, if, like, in other words, if you turn on the U.S. Open in golf and there's 108 players playing, I guarantee you I could probably name 90 of the guys or 100 of the guys. There may be one or two of the top amateurs, just like they do every year, that they showcase in the highlight reels. Here's the 3 amateurs that made it through qualifying this week. They finished +8, +9, and +30. Kudos to them. Nice playing. But you predominantly know the other players that are in there.
Now,
and the players that are in there are deserving to be in there at least through some kind of professional established credits.
So now look at the PTQ roster. That's what I'm doing now, right? Okay. So you would have figured out, okay, this is the U.S. Open. You're going to see all these tour guys that didn't get in that would bowl this thing, right? Don't know anybody in the A's that's recognizable. The only one I can think of in the B's that I know is Zeke Bate.
Now, let me ask you real quick. How long is the PTQ? How many games is it?
8 games, Sunday, January 29th at 9:30. And they're taking the PTQ 17 bowlers, I believe it is.
So 17 bowlers that comprise the field of 108 come out of the PTQ.
Yeah. For a major.
What notable
Michael Davidson, I know that one.
Yeah. What notable players are actually bowling in the PTQ that have absolutely no business bowling the PTQ?
Notable players?
Yeah, like who's in the PTQ that absolutely should never have to bowl a PTQ for a U.S. Open entry? Do you recognize anybody? Like anybody in there? Like I'll even throw Michael Davidson and Zeke Bate. I mean, they've both made television on the PBA tour. They've at least got a little bit more sauce. I mean, they should. You know?
I'll give you one here. J.R. Raymond.
Okay, there's another guy that, put in his dues on tour. Another guy's made TV. All right. Again, I'm considering notable a guy that's made it to the show a couple times.
Bro, I'm looking. Tim Foy.
Well, that's definitely one of your 17 spots that's going to make it this year.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you that.
I'm looking at this. I don't really know. Nate Garcia, the kid from Florida.
Another good player. He should be in the top 17.
So
you're telling me, and P. Weber is not on either list? He's just not bowling the U.S. Open?
No. So on the main roster, you go from Vi, Weedman, Wilkins, Williams, Stewie, and Kevin. There is no Weber. There is no Walter Ray. And if I'm not mistaken, there is no Norm.
Norm, at least I can moderately understand because, he did make his retirement announcement and he has been not competing pretty much at anything. So
here's another one. Tyler Cortez from Phoenix. Shank?
Cortez, yeah.
Yeah. There's one. Zach Tackett's on here. That's EJ's brother.
Now these are players that are already in the field?
This is the field for the PTQ, correct?
So just like sheer curiosity here. You said Zach Tackett's in there?
Yeah.
How? Courtesy of what? Does it say how they got in there? Because now it's really making less sense.
Into the PTQ?
Oh no, I thought you meant the actual.
No.
Oh, okay.
PTQ.
Okay, all right, got it. You confused me there for a second. I was almost about to go ape shit.
No, I'll give you another guy on here that I recognize that will get a spot into the main field. He's that good. And I read an article about him today. People think he has a chance to win Rookie of the Year on tour this year. Jalen Mosley.
I like that. That's a nice pick. Good player.
Jalen Mosley, phenomenal player. Really good player. Jean Perez, the lefty from Puerto Rico.
Yep, another good player.
That's the only ones that are really recognizable on this list. There's no tour vets that's on this roster for the PTQ.
Does it have a prize fund?
For the actual tournament, as a matter of fact, I pulled that up as well.
What are they paying the winner?
Figuring you would ask that question, the prize fund. It is total prize fund is $279,000.
So they're going to pay $50 to the winner?
That is 108 entries at $500 a pop. That equates to $54,000. All right. Their added money is $225,000. $100,000 is for first.
How much is for fifth?
$8,000. 8, 14, 25, 50, and 100.
So 200 of that 200 and something thousand, 248,000 is amongst it. And how many checks are they paying?
36.
So paying a third of the field.
So 36 gets you 1,500, and there's an alternate fee here. It says for $240. So if you make match play, match play gets you $2,000. Now just think about that. Just hear that out. 56 games, right? If you finish 24th at the U.S. Open, you get a check for $2,000. Do the math really quick, bud. $500 to enter. Traveling to Indianapolis, hotel for a week, food for a week, whatever else you want to do for a week. You're probably in for close to $1,500.
Oh, soft.
If you finish at 24th place in the U.S. Open, you're making $500. I would rather slip my wrist and bleed out slowly on the side of the road than do that and put myself through the ringer for 56 games against the best in the world than that. I make more than that in a day's work.
You're exactly right.
And I hate to say it like that. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but I make more than that in one day's work. Why would I ever want to go bowl in the U.S. Open?
You make more than that in a day's work, and you don't have to compete at the absolute highest level and beat the best bowlers on the planet to do it either.
I don't have to travel. I don't have to kill my hands, my knees, buy equipment. Zero. Why would anybody ever want to pull their hair out for $500? I don't want to hear, oh, it's the experience. It's not the experience. It's not.
It's an experience one time. If it's something you really, really love. And that's usually the end of it, which is, why you see your one hit with guys that go and bowl it once in a while. But you're exactly right.
Give me a guy we grew up with. Anybody. Throw me a name. I'll use Mike Stevens.
Okay.
Love Mike Stevens, right?
All right.
Right? Mike loves to bowl. If he wants the experience, he can't enter the field. He's entering a PTQ. He's not getting the full experience.
Right.
So if you want to say, okay, I want to live the dream and go bowl in the U.S. Open, that's not happening. It's not. You're not. If you want to live the dream when it was a Carolier, how many people bowled in that tournament that did not belong there? All your league guys from Friday night and whatnot. Jason's right. We'll enter the Masters.
Comprised of the donators. Absolutely.
He's right. Okay, and the Masters is the same thing. But I think the U.S. Open weighs a little more than the Masters does.
Well, not so much anymore.
No.
And nowadays, the Masters is much harder to win than the U.S. Open.
And here's that. The Masters is in Detroit at Thunder Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
3 different days.
And that sold out in roughly 20 minutes.
It's because it's the old bowling capital of the world, and in my eyes, still technically is. They gave the title to Vegas, but you go to cities like that, you're always going to fill tournaments. Always.
But that tournament at an open roster at 500, 400 people, whatever it is going to sell out in 30 minutes all the time, just like the U.S. Open would. Why are you taking entries from the bowlers? They want to bowl this event. You don't think if this was an open event that more tour guys would have bowled? You don't think you would see some of the senior players come out to bowl?
Absolutely. That's why I said the 108 number. I'm kind of just beside myself by it. It's how can you make that drastic of a change? And last year it wasn't like this at all, right? There was no PTQ for the U.S. Open. There was no limited field, right? This was nothing like this last year. I just only learned about this recently, and I'm still trying to figure out.
No. There was a PTQ last year.
What was the field size? Does it show that
of the PTQ? Or
no, the tournament itself?
There was 107 people. We'll start with the PTQ. 107 people, right? Bowled the PTQ last year. Let's play a game, John. 8 games. All right? 8 games. They took 26 bowlers last year into the field.
Okay.
What was the cut score?
I'll go 8 under a game. I'll go 64 under.
Not even close. The cut was +8.
Well, on the U.S. Open PTQ, I guess they're not hard anymore.
So, looking at this, an amateur led it. Franklin Snodgrass, SNOD Grass.
Good bowler.
+156.
Good bowler.
David Stauffer, second. Ryan Stubbenfield. Then Maria Jose was 4th. Charlie Brown was 6th. Perry Crowell. Brandon Runk gets through. Kevin McCune got through.
A lot of good players up there.
Yeah. Jillian Martin got through. So that's that. Now, what were you asking for last year?
I was curious what the size of the U.S. Open field was.
Size of last year's field. Qualifying round 1. 108 people.
So this is not the first year they've done that then.
No. So just think of it. They took
so the big up the
26. What did I say? 26 got through out of the PTQ last year. Right?
So this is not new news what they're doing here this year. With the big uproar is the fact that they gave away one free spot to a world-class baseball player, and they gave away a PTQ spot while there's a waiting list to a country music artist. Is that what the big uproar is then about the entire thing?
Basically, I would justify giving Mookie the spot over giving the singer the spot. At
the end of it, they're going to do what they're going to do, and we have to, and they did for whatever reasons they chose to. From the outside looking in, it's disturbing to take the spot away from somebody who is way more worthy of it. If you really, really wanted me to get deep right here, and this may sound shitty to a lot of people, but I've got to make sense to some people here. I wish that Mookie Betts or Jimmy Allen would have turned around and said, you know what? We know this spot is more deserving of a bowler. We're not going to bowl, but we'll be at the event all week. We don't need to fucking bowl for the U.S. Open. Even if we win $100,000, what's $100,000 to us? It's life-changing money for one of these other guys.
You know what?
That's what I like. That is what my idols would do. Like the guys that I look up to. That's what I would have said. Are you Tom Clark? I sincerely appreciate this, man. I'll do sideline commentary for you. I'll hit up Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and I'll preach to the high heavens about how awesome bowling is. I'll invite the winner to come sit in the dugout at my first game with the Dodgers next year, or I'll have these guys backstage. But do me a favor. If somebody else here has a chance to win $100,000 and they could change their financial future, have at it for a little while.
Mookie makes that in 4 innings probably.
And at bat.
So, you know what? Give Mookie an exemption to the World Series then.
Yeah, give Mookie any exemption you want that's not screwing somebody else out of a chance. Exactly. That has put more time to this craft. That's my stance on it. Everything else is white noise.
So now let me ask you this one. What's more disturbing? PTQ for the U.S. Open or PTQ for the Tournament of Champions?
I think I don't care as much for the Tournament of Champions PTQ. Just change the name. Just don't call it the Tournament of Champions anymore. Call it the International Bowling Championship. Call it something like that, because it's not the Tournament of Champions anymore. They proved that when Kelly Kulick won. She was not a PBA national champion. I hate that I have to use Kelly as the example there because I love her to absolute death. But the truth of the matter is, it didn't make sense to me. That's not you can't win the Tournament of Champions if you're not a PBA champion. Just didn't make any sense to me. So that one, just change the name of the tournament, and I'd be a lot better, because typically over the years that field was capped at 64 players anyway. Guys were at least used to it. You bowled your 48 games.
Now, how do you get into the field now at the Tournament of Champions? So I have
to make it sound, you have to average 180 and like breathe regularly in order to get into it now.
All right, so hold on a second here. So I have the roster for both, right? I have the roster for the PTQ and I have the roster for the actual field at the TSC, right? Mm-hmm. So explain. All right, so Weber's on the roster for the Tournament of Champions. Walter Ray is not. Okay, here's another one. Mark Williams is on the roster, a 2-time Tournament of Champions champion on the roster. Okay, so I can see Pete McCordick is on the roster for the Tournament of Champions.
Okay,
a national title holder. So is it just any national title holder automatically gets a spot into the Tournament of Champions, and then the other ones have to rabbit their way in?
You got me.
So let's look at this. So the PTQ roster: Lenny Borsch, Nathan Bohr, AJ Chapman. Now, AJ Chapman doesn't have a national title, right?
This is the PTQ roster
Correct.
for the TSC now?
Correct.
No, he doesn't. Not that I know of, unless he won on the Extra Frame Tour or something, which he may have. I don't know.
I don't. Does J.R. Raymond have a national title? Did he have a doubles title with Connor Pickford?
Anthony Simonson.
That was
won.
It was Simonson.
Well, yeah, when they won in the smaller bowling alley in the stadium downstairs. Yeah,
okay.
that was Sima.
Okay, so looking at this, so there's not one national title holder on the roster for the PTQ. Nathan Bohr doesn't have one. Lenny Borsch has senior national titles, but that's not going to count, right?
Right, shouldn't.
So of this, they're going to then sprinkle in. You know, or I don't want to say it anymore.
No, please.
It's the Tournament of Champions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, this should be something where you have a lifetime exemption into the field.
Yep.
So let me ask you this: if Emiliano Monticelli wants to bowl, does he have to go through a PTQ?
By our standards or their standards?
Our standards, absolutely not.
I was going to say, apparently yes. Oh no! If he's a national title holder, he shouldn't have to bowl the PTQ for the TSC. By what you're saying. So there's got to be a different set of rules that we're missing here.
So this is where I'm trying to find, and the PBA's website is absolutely atrocious. Absolutely atrocious.
Yes, it always has been.
72 is the max field at the TSC.
Okay. Again, that's consistent with years.
Okay.
With its history.
All right, here it goes. Priority entries open November 21st and close Saturday, February 25th. Priority will be given in the following order, provided PBA Tour champions, regardless of status, have entered by February 25th, 2023. PBA Tour champions with the most titles, and then the second one is the most recent PBA Tour champions. PTQ entries, blah, blah, blah. Only 8 players will advance out of the PTQ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the 60. That's still the 64-man traditional field, but they're introducing a PTQ. Okay, that's okay.
That allows the regional players in.
That's okay. Pat Healy, for example.
Yep.
He made the show by winning he was the U.S. amateur champion in 1995. Mm-hmm. And then he made it through the Rabbit. Then he bowled the whole tournament and he made it to the show. Francis Ouimet won the U.S. Open of golf in 1919 by doing the exact same thing when the U.S. Open was contested on his home course. That is okay. I don't mind you bringing special guests into the main event by virtue of a qualifying round if they comprise 1/10 of the field. Not when they comprise, oh, by the way, this year, if you've ever won a regional, like you said earlier, catch lightning in a bottle. I was feeling really good. I got boozed up in bold qualifying in Delaware, and I won. I happened to make it, and then I won the next day. I shouldn't have the same luxury as guys who have paid their dues already. So that at least makes moderate sense to me. Fine, you want to expand the field and have an off-the-wall chance at an oddball champion winning the TSC. You've already ruined that because you've already had oddball people win the TSC. So, on to the next one. But there's definitely a criteria differential there from the U.S. Open as far as who they're allowing in the field and who they're not. I like the idea earlier when you said priority check-in. Like based off what you said, I'm assuming my dad got an invitation to bowl the Tournament of Champions this year, and he probably just didn't answer it.
He ripped that up on the garbage.
Exactly. Yeah, he's like, you think I'm going to drive to Indy to go to bowl on that shit that they're putting out?
Yeah,
Dad, why don't you just say it's okay? You're 76 now, and it doesn't matter what pattern they put out unless it's Howell's house shot.
Dad bowled 770 last night. Whacked him last night. Yeah,
it's because there's so much oil at Howell that he can throw it slow and get away with it. Meanwhile, he tells me they hook out of the building.
They do, but that's another story. But regardless, but again, he deserves that invitation.
Of course,
anybody who's won the turn, that goes back to it. Lifetime exemption, and this is what I think the Bolero people are missing. Was it the corporation that owns the PBA? If this was still privately owned, like when Elias had it, it would be for the bowlers, by the bowlers, for the bowlers, and it's not like that anymore. It is all corporate BS.
You imagine Tiger Woods coming back from his back. What did they do with that back surgery he had? It's that fusion surgery.
Yeah.
Imagine if he came back from that and they changed the rules of the Masters and said, Tiger, if you want to play this year, you have to play in the PTQ.
Oh my God.
That's what they've done. And then they said, oh, and by the way, I want you to meet Machine Gun Kelly. He's an up and coming rapper, but we think he's really, really good for the game because he brings a different flavor to the game. Like people like Robert Lawrence and my dad should be.
How about Robert Smith?
Robert Smith. Robert Smith, you a 2000 U.S. Open champion. Another one, prime example. They should be pissed. 100%. Bob Lerner won the U.S. Open?
Yeah.
When?
He won in 2001, maybe? 99? He won in Arena.
Really? Yeah. I've never seen that show. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Nice. No, I mean that those are three great examples right there.
Totally. It's Mike Scroggins. There's another one.
Scroggins, a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, every name you list should still have the opportunity to bowl that event if they want to, especially since it used to be called the U.S. Open because it was open. Now, not only is it not open, it's not even open to some of the pinnacles of the sport. It's not even open to some of just the standards. It's insanity to me.
Why is it that the new, I'm going to use air quotes, the new PBA has erased the history of the old PBA?
It seems to be consistent with the way the world is these days. But I think that they are just desperately doing anything and everything they can to hang on to whatever they got left. But then again, on the flip side, Mike, what's so funny about it is we keep saying this, but there's always waiting lists.
Yeah.
There's a waiting list at this PTQ. There's a waiting list here. So people are still bowling. Doesn't matter how much we identify all this crazy bullshit and how absurd it is and how much they are literally screwing people that have paid their dues and their time to this sport, to this craft. And people just keep lining up. They just keep doing it. So I'm telling you, what I said earlier is really how I feel about the whole thing. I think Mookie Betts is one of my favorite ball players, even though he's never played for a team that I like. I love how classy he is. I love how down to earth he is. I think that exposure of guys like that is wonderful for our sport.
It is. It absolutely is.
It absolutely is. But it does, if they have these crazy dreams that doing things like that is going to put bowling on the map, I mean, I hope they prove me wrong. I really, really do. But they've tried it already. They've tried to introduce the Chris Ball Celebrity Invitational, which, whether it's watched the most or not, because they try and say, oh, the most watched event of every year is the Chris Ball Celebrity Invitational. That's because when people are scrolling by on their televisions, they stop when they see everybody that's not the bowlers.
When you see LeBron James,
what is LeBron James doing in a bowling alley? Oh, that's cool. Oh, he sucks. I'm going to change the channel. That's a viewer. That's a viewer.
Yep, and there go your ratings. DJ Khaled was another one.
Yeah,
you're going to see that.
Absolutely. So it's insane to me that they think so anyway, they've tried this and they think that this is bringing in all these crazy amounts of people that are so into bowling. Have you seen those television shows?
They're unwatchable.
At those celebrity events? Have you seen the crowd? I haven't, because there isn't any. There's never anybody there other than the players' wives, a couple local agents, and I guess
and the desk person at the Bolero
groupies of whichever famous athletes are there, and the people that work Bolero. There's no fans there. There's nobody going out of their way to drive to downtown LA to go watch that. There's nobody there. It's a crazy hassle for the chasing something that's not there. I understand. I appreciate the battle. I really do, but I think they're chasing the wrong way.
I think you're right what they're saying. They want to bring people in to view it and whatnot. How about you bring sponsors in first?
Exactly.
That's what you need to do. Bring sponsors in first. If you bring the sponsors, the viewers will come. But you cannot compete against the NFL on a Sunday.
No, God, no.
You cannot put the PBA Tour on FS9 or ESPN 8 or whatever the hell it is. You can't bury them on cable TV. You have to put them. When the tour used to be on Wednesday nights on ESPN, that wasn't bad.
No, because there wasn't anything else to watch.
Exactly. Exactly. So why can't you do that?
Right.
You're never going to get the time slot back at 3 o'clock on ABC. We all know this. But go after the sponsors. Do something that'll attract the sponsors. And sponsors for today, right? What, 30 years ago, what did you have? AC Delco, Quaker State, Miller, Budweiser. Those sponsors are going to be near impossible, right? Go after fresh things that are like now. You know what would be a great sponsor for the PBA? Go after the cryptocurrency market. Like you watch Major League Baseball, the umpires wear that, whatever the 3 letters are, that's a crypto thing. Go after that. There's a shit ton of money in the crypto field. Maybe they pick it up and they dump in $500,000 into an event or whatnot, and you sell a commercial to them, right?
Make some NFT trading cards. Yes. Throw them somewhere. Put them up at certain values. Belmo, make a Belmo all-time majors leader NFT token.
One of the tournaments, I think it was Tackett, he won overseas. They paid him in crypto. They didn't pay him in cash. They gave him crypto for it. All right, now I don't know what this is. I'm going to pop this on the screen here, okay?
Okay.
I don't know.
Is he referring to maybe one of Ernie Schlegel's outfits?
I have no idea what he's referring to.
What is it, Tapster? PW Rister?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I got to hear this one. But again, if you bring the sponsors on, right? And forget the ball manufacturers. I'm talking about regular. What about like a Monster energy drink, John? Something like that. Like that, people live for that stuff. Like when you watch NASCAR, I don't watch NASCAR, but those energy drinks are huge with the NASCAR market.
Mike, it goes back to what you said, because they've tried that too. There was a time period where a lot of pros were wearing the Atomic Verve logo, and that company Verve was sending out cases upon cases of this energy drink. Bubbly is trying to do it now. There's a lot of different kinds of things like that. It's the same thing in the supplement business, in the weightlifting world. Who's got the best amino acids for recovery and endurance? Who has this? Who has that? The problem is the companies involved in bowling are not big enough companies. Like Atomic Verve doesn't have the spending power that Monster or Red Bull has. In the motorcycling world, Harley Davidson, or in the stunt riding world, Harley Davidson and Hoonigan have way more pull than at this point, say like a Can-Am or a Kawasaki. So I was just gonna say I pulled up Rainbow Head.
Did you really?
Yeah, I think this is him.
It's disgusting.
Never mind. It's just a picture of Christopher Walken wearing a wig. Yeah. It's a rainbow. Anyway.
What else did you want to talk about tonight? You texted me a bunch of crap. You seem like you were fired up tonight too. Let it fly, man.
No, I was doing great. I had a good day at work today. I banged out all my stuff early, and I'm a frequent viewer of Rob and Big Mike's Sweep the Rack podcast, and they do a segment called Worst of the Week, where they both identify things that just drove them nuts, like that drive nuts that they see on social media. And earlier today, on my show on Straight Up 5, I've recently been talking about the escalation of the news feed on the internet. I had made mention of how many people in a scroll that I see say, "Oh, I was fortunate enough to put 3 good ones together tonight. Hopefully, I'll have as good of a week next week," and they shoot 860, or and it's like 860. I won the Crystal Pin Award for my 858 in 2005 for the entire state of New Jersey. Well, what do you mean you had a pretty good night and you shot 80? I was fortunate enough to come away with the win today. I averaged just under 270. I lost a couple hits here and there.
And I used a brand new ball. It's a must-have in your bag.
Yeah. So earlier today, I'm scrolling. Now, keep this in mind. I don't know who this person is, and I specifically didn't save their name. I just saved what they wrote on social media, and I wanted to identify a couple things that pissed me off about it.
Let's go, John.
So this person's out here bowling the military championships at
Okay.
the South Point Plaza.
Okay.
He posts 8:29 for the first set. ... Could have been a lot better. ...
Now, is it a 3-game set or a 4-game set?
Three.
Scratch or handicap?
Scratch.
Okay, 829 scratch. Okay.
In all lowercase. 8:29
Okay.
first set. Could have been a lot better. ... So I'm sitting here and I'm saying this to myself. I have an imaginary school class outside in front of me, and I go, kids, by a show of hands, how many of you think you're perfect? Anybody? No, right?
You'll get a couple in, yeah.
It's pretty much an unspoken agreement amongst every living person on this planet that nobody is perfect. There's something wrong with everybody. That's what makes us all great, right?
Right. We're all unique.
When you write something like that, first off,
Crying.
it could not have been a lot better. It could have only been 71 pins better, or you could have struck 3.5 more times in the 3 hours that you spent on the lanes. That's the only way it could have been better. What you're also telling me when you write something like that is you are saying, I was so perfect today. I split my mark at the arrows and the break point, and I split the 8-9.
I'm crying.
33 out of 36 shots tonight. And I was given the reward that I deserve for that perfect execution. And those other 3 shots that I threw, I left a ringing 10 pin, and I left a solid 8, and I left a solid 9. So it should have been a hell of a lot more than that 829. I really got robbed on those 3 shots. You're telling me that's what you're saying to me when you write something like that. It is what I wrote to you earlier was absolutely despise that it has become so cool to act like you are completely disinterested with something that you seemingly love.
Yeah.
You just averaged 276 and change. How many people in that building do you think averaged more than you? That you're going to go and talk about what could have been better. It's revolting to me. So when people do it, it actually like burns me to my core. I actually wrote to you earlier, Mike. Mm-hmm. To me, that's like slapping God in the face.
Yep.
It really, really is. And there was one other thing I wanted to mention here. Here we go. I tried to give it a comparison. One of the greatest,
the Mark McGwire comparison.
Yeah, okay. One of the greatest things in sports is that at some point when something miraculous or awesome happens, that hero of ours kind of becomes more like us. He's more relatable. So when Mark McGwire hit the 60-second homer that just cleared the left field fence to break the single season record at that time, and he almost missed first base because he was in such complete shock that it happened. And as he's running around the bases with 35,000 people screaming his name in the stands, then he has to jump on home plate, get attacked by the other 25 players on his team. And then the first thing he wants to do is pick up his son who is crying. He's got his name written on his hat, Matt. Now he's going to go get a huge hug from Sammy Sosa running from the opposing team who's on the exact same trek that he's on, trying to do the same thing, trying to revive the sport. Nothing but raw, amazing emotion. Now, what was better? The excitement of the home run or the home run itself? And and the memories that it produced for everybody. I just talked to you about that like it happened yesterday. Not 20 years ago or 30 years ago, whatever it was. I don't even know now. Could you imagine now if Mark McGwire hits that home run, he runs around the bases, and when he touches home plate, he says, I turned on it a little bit early. It was a low liner. Could have hit it a little bit better.
Bye.
It's so like anybody to me that says you got to stay steady, Eddie, you got to keep your head in, all these kids are too good. It's still okay to get moderately happy about doing something that's awesome. There is a big difference between being humble about shooting 750 in league, because averaging 250 in league is very easy to do nowadays at that level. But it is quite another when you miss 3 times in 3 hours, and the first fucking thing you want to say to the general public is it could have been better. Get the fuck out of my face.
Amen. Can I give you one? What about one that I'll give you one that pisses me off?
Sure, good.
So I run our the Monmouth County Masters tournament here in Jersey. And I pride myself for the past 4 years that I've run it, that I've grown the field back to a nice mid 100 and so entries. And I've taken the patterns and I have worked with the help of John Janowitz to design a pattern custom to every center that we move the tournament to, based on their surface, their lane machine, their oil, the cleaners, the chemicals, yada, 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 right? So my tournament is next Saturday and Sunday. Okay. So entries are coming in. And all of a sudden, it has become very, very repetitive. What are we bowling on? What's the pattern? What? And I don't release the pattern until the day of. I had a guy at a league last night, John, in Howell Lanes. Bless you. He's a 188 average league bowler.
Okay.
188. He also is a 193 league bowler at Nob Hill.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Now, this guy, when the lanes are not to his liking, he packs up his stuff and he walks out the door and he leaves. Now he's we'll just say he's a 190 bowler in 2 centers.
Okay.
Same bowler was walking around in the beginning of league season this year saying how he had bowled 4 800s over the summer at Nob Hill. What said
it's
bowler,
pretty good for a 190.
It's a 4-game league.
Oh.
He left that part out.
Awesome.
Okay. Now, this guy says to me last night, "What is your pattern for the Masters?" I don't know. Well, when are you going to let us know? I don't know. Well, do you know the pattern? Yes, I do. Well, why aren't you going to tell us? I don't think anybody needs to know that. What difference does it make to Mr. 190 average bowler when he's going to average about 170 on whatever I put down regardless? And if it's not to his liking, he's going to get in his car and he's going to pack up his stuff, get in his car and drive away. So when did bowling become so egotistical that it is, well, if the pattern's not to my liking, I'm not going to bowl? Or it's, I don't bowl good on the short. Oh, it's too short for me. Oh, I'm not bowling. Or it's too long or going to wipe me. When did this become so like relevant? Why is it all of a sudden we need to know what we're bowling on at all times? Why?
Bowlers have always found something to bitch about in every generation. You and I can vouch for that.
Agreed.
And but I think it's because a lot of the times because they are catered to. They, pretty much every problem a bowler has, to some extent, they are catered to. It's almost like, obviously on a way, way lower level here, it's the reason we don't negotiate with terrorists is because if you negotiate with one, you got to negotiate with everybody. So the problem with bowling is we can't allow scratch bowlers or professional bowlers to bowl this event, or we can't do this, or if it's public knowledge, it should be my knowledge, and I have a right to know. And we live in a time now that you have to tell me everything that I ask, otherwise you're going to offend me and you're going to offend everybody else, and now I'm going to take everybody with it's all bullshit nowadays. But it's because for the last 20 years, bowlers have been given the privilege of knowing the pattern, so they always assume everybody to do it. Whereas I would love to go bowl a tournament and have you tell me nothing. You want to tell me nothing? You want to know what I'm going to bring to a tournament if you tell me nothing?
Ooh, I'll guess.
You got six bowling balls. I'm going to bring a 6-ball arsenal. Go ahead.
A T-zone?
Yeah.
And a rubber LT-48?
Yeah.
Probably a red edge.
Okay, you can say whatever else you want from here, but it doesn't have to be ball specific.
Yeah, you're going to have rubber, plastic, and urethane in your bag.
And resin.
Sprinkle in your resin, of course.
Right. And different covers on the resin. One pearl,
yep.
one solid,
and
one big core.
An asymmetrical.
Right. Exactly. And for those 6 games, or if that 8-game tournament, how long is your tournament, Mike? How many games?
5 games. 5 games in the match play. 5 games in the match play
tournament.
Yeah.
That would be my answer to anybody who asks about the pattern. I would say, how many bowling balls do you have? How many bowling balls can you fit in your trunk? You own 25 bowling balls? Put all 25 of them in your trunk. And if you need to use all 25 of those balls for my 5-game tournament, you're not going to make the finals anyway. But if you have them all in your car and you're prepared and you come in here and say, okay, this pattern is short. I have an entire bag dedicated to short pattern play in my car. There's still 6 minutes left in practice. Let me go get that bag, even if I got to bowl 9-pin no tap the first 3 or 4 frames, I'm going to get myself comfortable on this pattern now because I'm prepared for it. People don't want to be prepared before they get there. They want to be told exactly what to do. I'm one of the worst culprits. All right,
but the 190 leg guy can't read a lane graph. So what difference does it make?
Exactly.
I can put this in front of him. He's not going to know what this means. Do you think he cares what the loads are on the reverse? He doesn't know. So this is what I said to him. He asked me 4 times last night. On the 4th time, he goes, "What are you putting down?" My response to him was oil, and I walked away.
He should have said, I'm oiling. I'm going forward oil 28 feet, but I'm going reverse buff back to 15 feet.
And the answer Ray's question, a pattern is when you get to knuckle it up 10, Ray. That's it. But again, what difference does it make? Seriously.
It to them, everything. Because you have to remember something, Mike. And this is one thing that I, contrary to my bitching about the guys who play down when they shoot astronomical numbers, I really hate the bowlers that are quote unquote good and shit on the 190 bowlers, because the 190 bowlers actually do give a fuck. They actually care.
Those are the ones to support the USBC. So you need
that guy that's asking you is actually trying to figure out in his mind what he thinks is the best plan of attack based off all the information he has gathered from the internet, not from going to get a lesson every week. Because let's be honest, nobody that wants to get good ever gets a lesson. They just go and find whatever information is available to them on the internet. So this guy probably said, well, it's very important if I'm bowling on Tower of London or whatever the fuck the name of it is. If I'm bowling on London and it's 44 feet and I use the rule of 31 and my ball has to be changing direction at this point, then there's no way that my Black Widow Ghost with my dual angle layout's going to work. I need to drill this. They get frantic like that because that's like part of bowling nowadays. And at the pinnacle level, those kind of intricacies are the difference. The same way a half mile an hour on the speed of a putt is the difference between having it 2 feet past the hole and 20 feet past the hole, and the make percentage of it coming back from going from 100% to 30%. But at that level, that's what these people don't seem to understand is 200 may have been a good average in 1980. It's not a good average anymore at even recreationally.
But John, this guy walks out of league when they're not up to his liking. How much more wall? And he's a lefty. How much more walled are you getting at Howell Lanes on the left side of the lane? This guy's 188 in my league there, and he's walking out because he doesn't like what's out there. Dude, take 2
Mike, let me tell you something
right
now. Let me tell you something right now. We'll get off the bowling topic. I don't know this guy from a hole in the wall.
Okay.
But anybody that walks into a building nowadays that bowls every week and averages 188 or 190 and bitches every week probably despises his life and probably has nothing better to do. Anybody that's going to go someplace to do something that they obviously like enough to go out and do once a week and then bitch and turn around when everything's not going their way is not the kind of person I want to associate with anyway. So, I mean, that opinion really means nothing. Emerald, I saw if Emerald's talking about Sorel Cardenas, I did see something earlier, but I only saw a picture of him. If you know anything about it, Emerald, let us know, and it's good to see you, girl. I'm actually coming home to surprise Dad for his birthday.
Are you really?
On March 3rd, yeah. He doesn't know that. No, my sister's gonna get me, but keep that quiet.
Will I be seeing you while you're here?
Of course. I mean, I'm just gonna miss you, but I'll at least be able to be around you when you know.
We'll talk.
Meaning when you turn 40.
I turn 40 Monday.
I know. I'll be at least close enough that it's still close enough to being able to wave to you also.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm trying to find Sorel right now.
We'll keep that a secret from Dad, obviously.
Yeah, keep it a secret from Dad.
Of course. But it's very frustrating when this shit happens. Like it doesn't make a difference anymore. And it's really it's obnoxious after a while. It is.
I found Sorel's post that Emerald was. I'm actually going to read this because this is a real. If for y'all that don't know Sorel Cardenas, I've known this kid coming up from the junior ranks since I moved out to Vegas. I watched him bowl West Coast JBTs. He's very, very, very talented two-hander.
Okay.
He writes. This is a young kid too, man. I mean, Sorel can't be. I don't even think he's old enough to drink.
So let's say he's 18.
He's young, yeah.
Okay.
First off, what does PSA mean? What's that acronym mean on Facebook?
Public service announcement.
Thank you. Shows I'm getting old too, man.
Yeah.
I actually had no idea what pick to post. So here's a beautiful quote to look at as you read. Anyway, something I've noticed within the last 12 months is that the bowling community in general is just toxic. We tend to tear down other bowlers for how they bowl, how they are performing, and even what ball they're throwing. From this past Team USA trials, I heard a professional bowler talk about how he wanted to punch a kid in the face for distracting him by showing some emotion on a strike. It's amazing how some of the bowlers we look up to as role models will talk down to us. In general, what I'm putting out there is that we need a culture change in the bowling community. I'm addressing this now because I feel like this has gone on for too long. If I can share my bowling knowledge, I will. If I can provide words of encouragement to anyone who's having a good or bad day, I will. If I can provide a positive aura, I will. If I can continue to be the person my amazing parents raised me to be, I will. As I continue my path to becoming a professional bowler, I'll continue to spread positivity and lightheartedness because we simply need more of it. It's beautifully said. And if everybody thought that way, that'd be wonderful. And it gets kind of in line with what I was saying there. Like, Mike, I will credit myself and you for this one. And anybody can research this if they want to. I've never, ever, ever said a negative thing about anybody bowling related ever on social media. And I have a ton of friends on my Facebook page that are bowling fans, that are mediocre bowlers, that are bowlers that will make the post that say, oh, I was 3 strikes away from a 300 and it's a 236. Like, you laugh at it at home, but you recognize how important it is to them, so you give it a thumbs up rather than a fucking laughing face shitting all over that person. That's the stuff that Sorrell's writing. Those are the disgusting things. When a guy that has 2 bowling balls tries to sell a ball, a used Victory Road and a used, I don't know, Paradigm, $200 or best offer, I got to see 10 laughing faces before one serious inquiry. I can go to Kmart and I could smash my nuts in half for half that price or whatever. It's always something negative. And it's the same assholes writing the negative comments are the same assholes that are walking out of tournaments telling you did the lanes wrong.
Amen.
Yeah.
Our sport's broken at many levels.
Yeah.
And there is no answer to fix it. Am I right or wrong? There really is no
money, no sponsorship, exposure, a completely different outlook on the sport. Dude, we're doing it with everything else in the world now. We're trying to enter a time where everything is accepted. I mean, everybody is accepted in everything that they do nowadays. It is cool to be anything you want to be nowadays.
Absolutely.
The more off the wall you are, the more cool you are nowadays.
Forget at the professional level. How do you fix bowling at the recreational level? Because you have all these guys, like you just mentioned, right, that make the Facebook posts and whatnot, and they tag. I like the ones personally. Dave Watka Day, was it a couple weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
Dave Watka broke the internet,
yep.
Right? But on a normal Tuesday, or let's say a Wednesday morning, with how many leagues are going on right now on a Tuesday night, you're going to wake up tomorrow morning, and I'm going to say about maybe 5 to 10% of the people that are on your Facebook page that are friends with you will post I shot 802 and tag Dave Watka. They'll tag Chuck. They'll tag Timmy Mack. They'll tag Mickey Longo and all the stuff. It's obnoxious after a while, but that's what they like. Like, you can't knock them, right?
Can't knock who?
The person that's doing that, because
yes, prime example, Mike. I'm Johnny Petraglia Jr., so I don't get the same thrill out of bragging to my ball rep that gave me my contract about averaging 267 in league tonight.
Yeah.
But I'm also a huge fan of Jay Cutler, and I just tried to sign up for Team Cutler to become an ambassador for his brand. I want to become a part of Team Cutler, so he sends me supplements, and if I get other people to join his club, I get discounts off my next stuff. Because I love Jay Cutler and support what he does. So I do respect the people that do it. My question is like, everybody does it. And if you bowl 8-10, it's like not good anymore. It's like, hey, another guy.
What about the guys that do this? What about
boy.
the guys that do this? So look, I won a tournament over the weekend. I put up my post. I don't have real a quote affiliation by a piece of paper to a brand. I have a deal, but it's not a official deal, whatever the case is, right? I put it up. I didn't tag anybody. What about the guys that do this? I just shot my 33rd practice 300 game, and I'm going to thank Bill and Barbara Chrisman, and I want to thank Corey Dykstra, and I want to thank what's his name, Brett Spangler, and these guys. Now, those are the guys you can laugh at. Practice 300, and you're going to go tag the guys that are the owners of a company or the CEO of Brunswick.
I feel bad about laughing at those guys too, man, because they're just completely unaware. Like this happens to me. It's happening as I'm getting older. The same thing happens when I'm in the gym, man. There's a difference between people that you can tell know the gym, study the gym, and understand what gym etiquette is. I would never expect when I go practice a couple games and I'm on 13 and 14, I don't expect the group of teenagers that are on 15 and 16 to give me lane courtesy, especially 2-lane. So I'm certainly not going to get mad at them. And it's not that they're trying to directly piss me off or impede what I'm doing. They're just completely
don't know any better.
They're unaware, right?
Yeah.
They're unaware. In the gym, I can't get mad at the two kids that look like they've never been in a gym before, but they come in wearing their wife beaters and they got their headphones in and they're dancing around, taking selfies in the mirror, completely unaware that I'm shoulder pressing 200 pounds of dumbbells over my head, 2 inches to their left. I can't get mad at them for standing there because they're completely unaware. They're not educated enough, or they haven't taken the time to educate themselves to that point yet. So I can't shit on those people. The kid bowling the practice 300 is tagging Bill and Barbara Chrisman because he's willing to make an absolute fool of himself to get himself recognized. I think that's more admirable, at least, than the guy who is making the message on Facebook that says, been wanting to share this news for a week. I can't tell you how enthralled and taken back I am that Turbo has signed me on for another year. I'm so gracious for this opportunity. I am formally represented by one of the greatest rubber manufacturers there is.
And thank you, Chris Sand and Carolyn Doran Ballard.
Right. In other words, just right. I'm so happy that I get free grips for a year and I also get this awesome jacket. Thanks, guys. You don't have to make it sound like I am so beside myself that you extended me a contract to give me items that cost 90 cents each.
All right. How about I got one more. More.
Go ahead.
Guy at home. All right. A guy at home. You're making everybody die right now, John. This is fantastic. Guy at home. He's probably, I want to say, in his late 20s. He's a Strathmore guy. So right off the bat, he's a product of where he bowls.
So he might be a 240 guy if it's Strathmore. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, so I'm not going to name the guy's name. So right around the beginning of the year, Verity posts on her Facebook. And Verity Crawley, yeah. So if you ever follow Verity or see Verity's posts on Facebook, she likes to do those things where she'll ask a question, and then it's like, favorite place to go eat, let's chat, right? So she put down, right around New Year's, goals for bowling for the new year. Let's chat. And then she'll get like 1,500 replies, right? Now, Mr. X, I'm not going to name the kid's name.
Okay.
Mr. X bowls at Strathmore. A solid, I want to say, 217.
Okay.
217. Now, this kid has the balls. Now, again, nobody knows him. But I saw it, but I'm friends with him, and I can see on the feed. He has the balls to type into Verity Crawley and goes, to win a PBA regional title this year. Now, here's my gripe with this, John.
Okay.
He's never won at the local level. He's never won a King of the Hill. He's never won a county event. He's never made the finals at the Masters. He doesn't bowl anything. So now he also feels that he should be on staff with Storm with his 4 300s and 2 800s that he has in his career. Mind you, has never won a damn thing. So why does he ultimately think that he can just trump everybody? And now I want to win on the regional tour. Dude, you're not a good bowler. You, sir, stink. Explain that one to me. How do you rationalize that.
That one's a little touchy for me because it's more emotion based than anything else. And yeah, that's again, dude, it's either completely being unaware of the situation, not caring about it, and believing that you actually can, which, like I said, from the emotional standpoint, I would never frown on anybody for writing something like that.
Okay.
But the fact that you can't separate your delusions from reality and be logical in your rationale, that's the shit that does drive me crazy.
Look, I've had the dream, you've had the dream of always winning a PBA national title. We've always had this dream.
We've both gotten to the logical facts for whatever our own personal reasons are, and we both know exactly why, which is okay.
Correct. We're never going.
Meanwhile, congrats on your win, by the way. I didn't.
Oh well, thank you very much. Now I heard shit for that because ready for this? Number one, it was done.
You knew the pattern before it came out.
It was on the house shot. On the house shot. Number two, it was only against 50 guys, right? And number three, it was in a county with a small field. So here's my rebuttal to everybody that like pissed on my title. Right?
What place did you finish?
Not only that, right? The all events in an association tournament or at the nationals, in my opinion, is the hardest one to win. Why? You're doing it over 9 games, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. And me and you could bowl doubles. Let's just say you bowl 837 and I have no carry and I give you a stellar 30 clean 670. But we win the title because you bowled 830. You carried me to the finish line.
No, we won the title because we went 300 over.
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying? The singles title, you're doing it individually, and the all events title, you're doing it individually. So I win the all events for 9 games, and I averaged almost 240 for the 9 games. I'm going to get shit on because it was done against only 50 guys, a small association on the house shot. Okay, if I go bowl the USBCs and I bowl 23-40 and I win an eagle for all events, are you going to come home when I get home and say to me, oh, you had 2 weekdays or they must have had the easy pair or whatnot?
I was just going to say, no, you were on the easy pair with the best topography that week.
Yeah, so the lane man did him on the wrong pattern. But getting back to the other guy, this kid has never won anything. Anything. John, we learned when we started bowling, like with the adults, right? You bowl your local tournaments and you kind of walk before you run, right? Mm-hmm. So why would I, right, want to just throw my hat into the ring and go bowl a full regional swing when I can't compete at home? When I'm only 217 in league, there's a problem there.
Because if it's his dream and it's the right point in his life and he's financially able and capable of doing it and it's what he really wants to do, I support him 100%.
Okay.
You don't need to tell the guy at this point, why the fuck are you doing that? You know, you're not going to make $1. You know, you can't even win locally. He already knows that.
And don't publicize it then, right? Don't publicize it. Then, look, I'm not going to blow his spot up on social media or on this broadcast. I'm not going to. And there's people that have typed in that know who I'm talking about already.
Right.
Keep it quiet.
Yeah.
Don't say a word.
Well, that's the thing is maybe in his eyes, he thought his one-on-one convo with Verity in response to her question was private. Or does he talk to you about this too?
No.
No, like he's not walking around. At least he's not walking around the local bowling alley saying, I'm going to compete on the regional circuit this year.
I'll give you this one too. Same bowler. Friday night, we have King of the Hill at Strathmore. Now, I ran a qualifier for the Masters this week. So we drew 63 bowlers on a pattern, and it wasn't even a sport pattern. It was a challenge pattern. They were 4.5 to 1. They were not hard, John. They were not hard. 4.5 to 1. You had a little bit of an OB. It was not hard. This kid shows up the bowl. Mr. Regional player, right? Mr. Wayne Krampitz, right? Big regional guy from the East. Remember Wayne Krampitz?
I do remember Wayne Krampitz.
All the rings, right?
I sure do.
The biggest regional player in the history of the regional tour. This kid shows up. He was on a 4-to-1 challenge pattern, John. He was 299 for 2.
Okay, it's not a good start.
So he goes. So I'm at the table running this thing, right? So he goes to look at brackets. He goes, ooh. He goes, highly doubt I'm getting through any tonight. I looked at him square in the eye and said, this ain't the regional tour, son. He goes, I'd rather be there. They're easier out there. Are you insane? What are you smoking, son? Go ahead. Please.
After a year, this is a tough one, Mike. This is a tough one. Because I have watched some regionals that look pretty easy. But compared to a 4.5-1 at Strathmore, no. But I have had this conversation too, where if you bowl on nothing but regional patterns for the whole year and tour patterns, they eventually become your house shot because it's all you bowl on. I actually think it's way harder going to random local events that put out their own patterns because you don't have a preconceived notion of what to do or what the move is going to be like the guys on tour do. The guys on tour, like when I talk to Anthony Simonson, he's like, yeah, I'm leaving to go bowl that tournament in Lubbock, or I'm leaving to go bowl the Lucian.
Yeah.
And this year they're using ice oil, which means all my stuff that's this layout, I may as well leave it home. I just got to make sure I whack this, and that, because in that bowling alley, the higher end does this. Like, they already know not only what the lanes are going to do, but what they're going to do when they transition.
Yeah.
And that's because the patterns are consistent enough that they can build their already amazing skills on top of what's already in front of them every single week. Like, if Greg Tack, here's a perfect example.
Oh, God.
If Greg Tack decided to take over oiling the lanes on the PBA Tour and the regional tour, nobody would shoot us
drop their card.
You know how many people would cause another uproar and they'd have to reinvent the game again? Because even on the Pro Tour, and the regional tour, some players' talents and scores are magnified by the softness of the patterns. All the World Series of bowling, every single match was 260 to 250, dude. Every match. I watched, what's that kid's? Christian Ascona, when he had that really awesome week on there, and the guy they call Bam Bam, Kevin Kelso, they hit every arrow on that show, and the ball hit the pocket every single time.
But they're breaking them down the right way as well.
True. But again, in response to your friend about the regional, I respect the way their brain is, but there does have to come a point where logic trumps the dream, or at least makes you aware that the dream may not be in reach. So as long as you just go out there and do what you want to do to make yourself happy, which at the end of the day is really all that matters, but don't go out there expecting to do something like the guy that comes into Nob Hill that averages 190 and leaves when things don't go right. Like, you can't go there with that mentality. Like, I was supposed to win this regional this week. I'm just not good enough. Well, no, you son of a bitch. You were never good enough, but everybody here was supportive of it anyway. We figured you'd come to the realization that you weren't good enough for it. But apparently that's not the case either. Then you have that conversation with that guy. But until then, I agree with you, but I understand him.
Yeah, I get it too. But like, I don't want to say it's obnoxious, but it makes
completely obnoxious.
It makes him look like a buffoon. It makes him look like a fool, though.
Totally.
It makes him look like a fool. And this is a guy who he almost like expects like the highest level of bowling, right? You get yourself a contract, a ball contract, a grip contract, a shoot, whatever the hell it is. You are at the highest level of the game, right? And yes, there are a lot of guys that kind of backdoor it with a pro shop deal, whatever, right? There's few ball contracts. Yeah, there's few ball contracts that are given out based on merit anymore, right?
Very few.
It's all based on like who you know, if you're hooked up with a shop, yada yada yada, whatever, and that's fine, right? But this kid honestly believes that based on what he's accomplished in the bowling world, that he should have a contract, and that's why I ask you, son, you have 4 300 games in your career and 2 800s, and you've never won a goddamn thing. You've never paid a toll to bowl a bowling tournament, nonetheless paid an airline ticket to bowl a bowling tournament.
Because they've demoted the idea of a contract so much now that people like that feel like they deserve it and have a backing for it. How many pro shop operators, Mike, do you know that are the worst bowlers you've ever seen and not really good ball drillers on top of it? But they get on social media and they want to talk about somebody else not hitting lines, or they want to talk about like, and that guy, like, hey, I own a pro shop. I don't have to tell you that it's inside this 8-lane bowling alley in Campeche, California, where there's a population of 2,000 and we have wood lanes, and I have 2 balls on the wall, but they're both storm balls. Oh, you know what? Contract. 100%, because it's an easy avenue for the companies, the bigger businesses, to make more money, just like anything else in the world. The more people you have at the ground level collecting all this shit for you and supplying it to the consumer, the more money you're going to make.
So
you will give contracts to people who are not deserving of them simply because they're in a position to supply your product further. It's unfortunately the way business has to be done to get your product out there, but it's also shitty because guys like that feel like they deserve the same opportunity. Well, I've been in that guy's pro shop. He doesn't even promote that brand. Well, we think he does because he orders X amount of balls a month from our brand.
So you talk about ball drillers. I want to end it on this note, and I don't know if you saw this. Speaking of ball drillers, did you see who passed away a couple months ago?
Mike DeRose.
Mike DeRose.
Mm.
That was.
I hadn't seen him in quite a long time.
Me either.
He definitely. If you ever wanted to get in a bad mood, like I'm not saying that knocking the guy, but I could walk in and say, "Hey, Mike, how you doing?" And John.
Oh, John, these
look like
kids
you ate 3 extra hamburgers today. You didn't have that weight on you last time. Nah, this asshole there. It was always something. It was never just. It's great to see you. You look great. Hang on a second. Let me wear my 1979 Columbia Limoges shirt with my maroon leather Columbia.
Yep. And he, dude, when I used to work at Strathmore, when I was going to Brookdale, before I came out to Moorhead, he would practice 8 games a day, every day on lane 54, religiously in his white undershirt and his like maroon slacks,
dress pants.
Yep, and the ball,
and the wrister, right?
The wrister, and he would have the stain of the ball on the side of his undershirt, and he would put on his regular shirt and go drill afterwards. That guy, dude, he was a hell of a bowler, though.
He was, and he was routine, that's for sure.
Simplicity, man.
And he was certainly knowledgeable. He's definitely
very knowledgeable.
He is missed.
Can you imagine him going on a rant about today's bowling? Oh, John, these two hands.
It would be epic.
And he's spitting at you because he used to spit food at you when he would talk.
Yeah, he might be the only person that if he was still around, I would still wear a mask to go say hi.
I could see that.
Just for the spit, you know?
I remember he asked me once, he goes, "Can you bring me to Atlantic City? I want to play poker in Atlantic City." All right. I said, "Sure, Mike. We can plan out a day and we'll go to Atlantic City, right?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I've thought about taking the bus, but I'd rather go with somebody." I said, "Yeah, we'll go." He says this to me. He goes, "Oh, Sonny, just remember, if I'm going to go in your car, I may have to pull over a couple times." I said, "What do you mean we have to pull over a couple times?" He goes, "Oh, on the parkway." He goes, "I'm an old man. I got to pee like every 30 minutes. I said, "Mike, it's a 90-minute ride from Matawan to Atlantic City. Like, how often do you think we're going to pull over?" "Oh, probably 4 or 5 times. I got a problem." So, well, I said, "That's not going to happen. I'm not pulling over 5 times on the way." And JD said it best. When we used to play cards with DeRose, and John, you're a card player, so we used to play a 4-8 limit game with Mike DeRose.
Oh, cool.
He would sit back with his chips, and he would never play a hand unless he had queens, kings, or aces. The first time DeRose would make a raise to $8, the entire table, me, JD, Riccardi, Jen Chang, there's one, Pete Daniel.
Wow, Jen Chang.
Fold. And here's DeRose. "Oh, what are you doing? Mike, you have aces. We know you have aces. How did you know?" Mike, I'm willing to bet.
How do we know? You're the worst poker player ever.
Yeah, Mike, how are you figuring that out? Oh, you guys can read me really. No shit, Mike. You play one hand every 3 hours. You have any good DeRose stories from Carolier?
Nah, again, I was a little too young, but I just remember every time I would go in to have a ball worked on, I would tell him something didn't feel right in the thumb, and he would always tell me, "Nah, it's because you're putting your hand on the ball wrong." And he would scrape out with that scraper tool with the little thing on the end in the complete wrong spot every time. So it got to a point that I would walk in with my bag and then put it down and just pretend like I was looking for something, and then I would leave.
Did he really?
He never did a good job on my hand.
He wasn't the best driller, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But he was knowledgeable as anything, though. I mean, that guy was a fucking genius.
Couldn't agree with you more. Between him and Tony D'Alfonso, I mean, I got more information from the two of those guys, but OJ would always drill my stuff. Or
OJ was the best.
OJ, Jeff Mark, and Roger Gardner always drilled my stuff.
I hate to ask this, and I don't want to come off sounding like that, but is Tony D'Alfonso still alive?
I don't know.
And
I
if
feel like I
anybody's
would have.
wondering,
There he is. Oh, he upgraded his shirt and his smock. This must, but that's the face of him actually saying everything that I'm saying.
this was 2015.
All right,
And
so
I'm going to use DeRose's famous line as I'm going to wrap it up. I'd walk into the pro shop, and it didn't matter if there was nobody in there, if JD was in there, and JD, I'm about to say it, and he just wrote into the chat, or if he had a family with a wife and 3 little kids in there. All right, a woman with 3 kids. Oh, what do you say there, you ugly cocksucker? And he would say it all the time. Mike used to back guys on tour. You remember the show in St. Louis, John? It was Ray Edwards made the show.
maybe.
It was Ray Edwards, Bob Learn for the title. Ray Edwards
Was he throwing a purple hammer, like the old purple hammer? Are we going back that far?
Yeah, it was in the 90s. There was the Hall of Fame Open or some shit like that.
Like 92?
92, 93 maybe. Yeah.
Ray Edwards wearing a red shirt?
That I don't remember. But I remember Ray Edwards bowled, I want to say it was McCune in the first match.
Okay.
And Ray Edwards came out gutter 6, 4-4 to start the match.
I do remember that show.
DeRose has him. DeRose is backing him on the show. And then Ray Edwards pries off the back 10. Mm-hmm. And I want to say it was McCune. So now he bowls Bob Learn for the title. And Bob Learn beats him. DeRose had another guy. I don't remember. Maybe JD remembers this one. It bowls Bob Learn again for the title. Beats him again. Mike was 0 for 3 with his horses bowling Bob Learn. He hated Bob Learn's guts so much. But he would get on those rants and just spit on you. He was the best. I miss. It's a shame he's gone. I would love to have one more chat with him.
Don't ever lose that picture because that is the iconic Mike DeRose face. That is the face. That is 90% of the time. That's what his face looked like.
That was the last time I ever saw him. He was working in Jersey Lanes up in Linden, and he's working with Eddie Walsh. And I was at Jersey Lanes over the summer, and he said, no, he retired. All right. And I never thought about, calling him or anything. And then I found out about a month ago that he passed away. It was sad. He was a good guy, man.
Yeah, he sure was.
All right, let's wrap this up. I think we covered enough. I think we offended enough people tonight.
Yeah, sounds great. I think so too.
Are you on tomorrow?
I am on tomorrow to basically talk about the same stuff.
Wait, hold on a minute. JD with one more. Ready?
100%. So did I. He just talked a lot more than Mr. Bean.
How do you get Mr. Bean from Mike DeRose?
Same haircut, same hairstyle, same exact big eyes. Same confused look on his face half the time. He's absolutely Mike DeRose's doppelganger.
Really? I never would have thought Mr. Bean.
Yeah, it's perfect. He's like a combo of Mr. Bean and some Italian mob movie actor. He's like the love child of those two. But I'm guaranteed JD's saying it because of the hair and the eyes and the face.
Yeah, and my thing with Mike was like, why did you always wear an apron? Like a real pro shop guy doesn't wear the apron, right?
Oh, I wore my apron when I worked.
Well, you're pretty though. You got to cover your.
I did like to dress pretty, dude. I was the asshole that wore my old Brunswick collared staff shirts and dress pants when I was a mechanic at Howell Lanes.
That is true. You did.
I would sweep under the fucking old 8270s in slacks. Like, what are you doing?
But I'm sorry. I know I asked. I didn't remember if you heard. Do we know if Tony's still with us?
I've never ever heard anything about Tony passing. I assume Tony.
And how did his release go? He would go up here and then out to the side. He would throw it and then out to the side. Mm-hmm. And he was great. He was in Pin Gods. He made the appearance in Pin Gods.
Yeah. And when I was younger, I didn't really think he was that bad.
There's a lot of guys that fall into that category. We'll
Isn't that crazy? We'll do that another time. Like guys who we thought were really, really awesome when we were young kids, and then like as soon as we hit our late teens, they're like, God,
stink.
They're like really not good. Or did I just get that good?
But DeRose was the perfect one. Yeah, I'll ask Roger. That's a good one, JD. I see Roger every week. There was a lot of guys though that we always would think they were like at the highest level, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then once we got to the point where we were pretty good, like these guys stink.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Hey man, good show tonight.
Tomorrow, yeah, dude, a lot of fun. Tomorrow night, Johnny's on straight up 5. What time are you on tomorrow night?
5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern.
What are you talking about besides the normal stuff?
We're gonna dive a little bit more into the. We're gonna talk more about the urethane ban as more information comes out tonight.
Yeah,
we're gonna keep it. We're gonna talk more about the U.S. Open and then the exemptions. I really want to do a live Q&A, and I'm definitely gonna bring up my elevated irritatedness with people acting like throwing 33 out of 36 strikes a night is worthy of acting like an asshole.
I had a guy.
I'm going to stick on that one for a while.
John, I had a guy about 3 years ago. We bowled a Monmouth County tournament at Shore Lanes, which is not a very hard house.
Mm-hmm.
Guy bowled 23 and a quarter for all events for 9.
Jesus.
All right. Guy looked at us and he came over. We were by the bar packing up. Hey, man, good bowling. Shook his hand. Great bowling today. My Jimmy Rogers next to me. Jimmy shook his hand. Great bowling. Guy goes, I had no carry today.
Guy, the door is right there, sir. See you later.
You just shot 23 and a quarter for 9. How do you have the audacity to say I had no carry? He goes, well, I 7-10 twice today.
Good for you. Drive safe.
All right. John, love you, brother. We'll talk during the week. I'll be back next Tuesday. We'll figure out another topic to talk about next week. Daria is coming on probably sometime in February.
Cool.
That should be a good spot.
Sure. Hell yeah.
I'll tell you what. I would love to have her game. She throws it so fucking good.
I'd love to have her father's bodybuilding physique at some point in my life. Did you know that?
I heard he was like a major weightlifter.
Yeah, and I believe a physique champion, if I'm not mistaken.
All right.
So like the perfect aesthetic mixture.
Like what that Teddy Atlas guy? Like is that what you're talking about? Like something
like
that?
like a Bob Paris or a Chris Bumstead or basically like old school Arnold Schwarzenegger, where you're not too bulky,
Okay.
but you everything's in the right place and it's proportionate. I'm pretty
good.
sure. Yeah. So it'd be a really good one. So thanks again for having me, and we'll talk to you soon.
You got it, Johnny. You guys, we'll be back next Tuesday, and like, subscribe to the page, and we'll see you then.